Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another tutorial. In today's video I'll be showing you guys how to cut and sew this beautiful asymmetric top with uneven hemline, long sleeves and also side ruching. If this sounds good to you and is something you're interested in, then please keep watching. Also, this video is going to be the concluding part to the previous video that I uploaded on my channel on how to draft the pattern for this top. So if you haven't seen that yet, I urge you to go ahead and watch that before coming back to this. And if you're coming across my page for the very first time, you're welcome. Please don't forget to click on the subscribe button, share this video to your friends, and also give me a giant thumbs up. To my returning subscribers, thank you so very much for always coming back, sharing and liking my videos. Now without much further ado, let's get right into this video. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be making use of a crepe fabric for this top, and I have about 1.5 yards of that here. This material is kind of stretchy, but not that stretchy, but it still does the work for me, so I'm going with that. So I'll just go ahead and bring my front pattern forward and place on my fabric. So this is the slashed front bodice. If you haven't seen the pattern drafting video for this top, I urge you to go ahead and watch that before coming back to this so you can understand what we are talking about here. So I'm just placing this front bodice on front pattern on this material, and I'll be determining how wide I want this slashed part to be, how wide or how much of ruching or gathering I want to have on my top. So I'm just going to be eyeballing about maybe 1 inch in between the paper. So you can just determine, you can use 1.5 inches or 2 inches, depends on how much ruching or gathering you want for your top. Okay, so I just went ahead with 1 inch in between. Once I'm satisfied, the next thing I'm going to be doing is adding sewing allowances around this fabric. So I'll be adding 1 inch of sewing allowance at the side seam, just as I'm doing. I'll be adding half an inch to the neckline area, as you can see me doing. And then I'll go over to the hemline and also add about 1 inch to fold in the fabric at the hemline area. I'm just cross-checking to make sure that it's correct. Then after I'm done doing that, I'll move over to the shoulder. I'll be adding half an inch to the armhole. I'll add half an inch to the armhole. Then around this pleated part where I want, and then the slit at the down part, I'll be adding 1 inch to that slit area. I'll go ahead and add 1 inch, as you can see me doing. Then the rest I'm just going to be adding ½ inch till I get to the hip line, just like I'm doing. Now, just like we did on the pattern, I'm going to be indicating where my ruching or gathering is going to be starting from on this top, which is there. Then I'll also be indicating where it's going to be stopping, which is also there. We've already done this on the pattern, so I'm just transferring to fabric, as you can see. So after I'm done doing that and just making sure that everything is in order, I'll go ahead and cut this fabric out. Then I'll go ahead and indicate where I'm attaching the second part of the neckline right there. Then I'll continue my cutting. I'll go ahead and notch where the ruching is going to be starting and stopping on the fabric. Don't forget to also notch where you're going to be reattaching the other part of the neckline at that area, so you notch that on fabric. So the next thing to do is to place the second part of the front pattern on fabric, and then you'll be adding your sewing allowances all around it. So for the front part right there, I'm going to be adding ½ an inch to join to the other ruch part of the second part of the front bodice. I'll be adding 1 inch to the slitted area, 1 inch to the hemline, and I'll be adding 1 inch also to the side seam. And also note that the right side of the fabric is facing towards you, which means that I'm placing this pattern on the right side of the fabric, so the right side is facing towards you. So I'm writing with chalk on the right side of the fabric, which is facing me. I hope you understand. So I'll go ahead and add ½ an inch to that part of the pattern, and then when I'm satisfied with what I have, I'll just go ahead and cut this fabric out. So you go ahead and transfer all the notches on your pattern to your fabric, that is all the places that we've notched before, where the gathering is going to be starting and stopping, just like we did for the other part of the fabric for the front. You go ahead and transfer all the notches to the fabric as well. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing is to place these two pieces on top of each other, right sides facing each other, and I'll make sure that the notches are aligned together where the gathering or ruching is going to be starting and stopping. I'll just go ahead and pin this up. Now, after I'm done pinning all the necessary parts together, I'm just going to take this over to the sewing machine, and I'll go ahead and gather the bigger parts into the smaller part, as you can see. So I'll just take this to the sewing machine and gather into the bigger part or the bigger piece, and then I'll be right back. So after I was done gathering it into the smaller piece, this is what we have. And I will also be closing up this little area that I left before the gathering and before the slit. I'll go ahead and do that later on my machine. So the next thing we want to do now is to complete the neckline area. So I'm going to be bringing forward the pattern for the upper part of the neckline that we cut off earlier. So I'm going to be cutting this on my fabric, and I'm going to be folding this fabric in two, as you can see. So the part that is going to be facing the center front on this neckline is going to be unfold on the fabric, as you can see, while the armhole is going to be cut into. So I'm just going to be cutting this, leaving about half an inch sewing allowance all around this, at the lower part, the side, and also at the top part. So but if your fabric is very stretchy, you may not need to add any allowance to it, because adding allowance to a very stretchy fabric might just cause a lot of gaping and inconveniences. So you can just cut it exactly as you cut your pattern. Now I'm going to be taking this piece that I just cut, and I'll be placing it on the rightful position on the neckline. So the folded area is the one facing the center front, while the open part is going to be the armhole area. You can go ahead and use your iron to press the material flat so it can be easier to work with. Then I'm just going to be placing it right sides facing each other on that part, and I'm going to be top stitching on top of it. After doing that, this is what I have. I'm going to be using my facing to cover it later on, cover the whole neckline later on with facing. So I'm going to be putting this aside for now so we can work on the back piece. So I'll just go ahead and place my back pattern on the folded fabric like so, and after I'm done doing that, I'll go ahead and add sewing allowances of half an inch to the neckline, to the shoulder, to the armhole, and then I'll be adding 1 inch of sewing allowance to the side seam like so. I will also be adding 1 inch extra allowance to the hemline for folding in the fabric. Now after I'm done doing that, I'll just go ahead and cut this fabric out. So the next thing that I'm trying to do here is to transfer the darts that I have on the pattern onto the fabric. So I'm just transferring some vital lines like the waistline and the underarm line or the bust line onto the fabric, so I'll be able to know where to draw my darts. So I'm just cross-checking from the pattern to the fabric so I know I'm on the right track. So with this measurement, I'll be able to deduce where I want to place my dart on the fabric. I hope you guys understand. So after taking in the dart on the fabric on both sides, this is what we have. The next thing to do is to place our zipper at the back. So I'm just going to be aligning it for you guys to see it. Now from the bottom, I'm going to be coming up by about 2 inches or 2.5 inches from the bottom or the hemline. You can come up 2 or 3 inches, depends on what you want or how long your zipper is. But I think I'll be coming up by about 2.5 inches from the bottom like so. So that is where my zipper is going to be stopping when I start sewing from the top part of the top. I hope you understand. So it's going to be stopping at this marked area. So I'll just take this to the sewing machine and sew in our zipper. I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back. This is what we have after fixing the zipper. Now before fixing the zipper, because this material is a little bit stretchy and to avoid headache, I decided to iron interfacing to the zipper allowance before placing my zipper. Now it will really do you good if you do that, especially if your material is very stretchy. Just adding your interfacing to the zipper allowance before placing in your zipper. So after I'm done doing that, this is what we have. So the next thing to do is to go ahead and cut facing for both the front and the back, so we can use the facing to cover up the rough edges of the neckline for both front and back. So I'll just go ahead and do that. Now before doing that, I'm also going to be trimming off this excess fabric at the ruffle part of the front. So you can either use your bias tape to cover the rough edges, or you can just weave the rough edges to give it a neat look. To cover up the rough edges at the neckline area, I went ahead to cut facing for the neckline, as you can see. So I'm placing it right sides facing each other, and I'll be sewing with half an inch sewing allowance. I'll top stitch and also iron with hemming gum to keep it in place. I also repeated the same process for the back neckline. I went ahead to cut 2 pieces of facing that I used to cover up the rough edges at the neckline and also part of the zipper head, like so. After doing that, I also went ahead to weave the rough edges of the zipper allowance. Now, after covering the rough edges of the neckline, I also went ahead to use hemming gum to hold it in place. As you can see, I repeated the same process for the front as well. I used hemming gum to hold this facing in place, and I also went ahead to weave the rough edges of the ruffle part and also the slits. I ironed the 1 inch of the slit in, like so, and I weaved the edges to give it a neat look. So to finish up the slit area, you can either use your hemming gum to hold it to give it an invisible finish, or you can just top stitch on top of it to hold it down. The two methods are totally fine. So the next step will be to join both the front and back at the side seam and shoulder. But before we do that, we are going to be folding in the hemline of both front and back. So I'm going to be using hemming gum to have an invisible finish. But if you don't want to use hemming gum for the bottom of this blouse, but you want to top stitch, it's totally fine. You can just fold in your allowance and then top stitch on top of it. After I'm done doing that, you just go ahead and join at the shoulders, and you also be joining at the side seam with the body measurement you're working with. I'll do that and I'll be right back. And this is the top. After joining at the side seam and also the shoulder, I also went ahead to press in the 1 inch of hemming allowance at the bottom, as you can see. And the next thing we are going to be doing is to insert our sleeves. So in order for me to do that, I'm going to be taking the round measurement of the armhole of this blouse in order for me to use it in planning our sleeves, because you need it. You need the round sleeve or the round armhole for you to be able to plan your sleeves. So I'll just go ahead and take the measurement for that, and I'll be using that measurement to plan the sleeves. So to plan the sleeves, I folded my material in two, and then the length of the sleeve is going to be 25 inches. It is a long sleeve, and then I'll just come up about half an inch. I'll be using that as a starting point. Then I'll make sure that I have 25 inches there. Now I'll come down by 15 inches for the elbow length measurements right there. After I'm done, I'll just come down 5 inches for my cap height. So I'll mark that across like so. Now on this cap height line is where we are going to be placing our top arm measurement or round sleeve measurement. So what you do is you place half of your round sleeve measurement plus 2 inches for extra ease. You'll be placing it on this line, and then you go ahead and mark that. Then you go ahead to take the midpoint of what you have there. So you mark the midpoint like so. After doing that, you'll be transferring the midpoint measurement to the top line like so. So you're basically just transferring what you have there to the top line. So you mark that. Now from that point, you'll be coming down by 6 centimeters. You mark that 6 centimeters, which you'll be using as reference to draw your sleeve curve like so. After I'm done doing that, I'll just go ahead and cross check if I have exactly half of my armhole measurement there. And when I'm satisfied with what I have there, I'll just move over to my elbow line and place half of my elbow measurement. And I'll also go to the wrist or curve and place half of my curve measurement right there. Then I'll just go ahead and add 1 inch of sewing allowance to the curve and also to the elbow. And after I'm done, I'll just connect these 3 points together like so. Now before I go ahead to cut this fabric, I'm going to be adding 1 inch of allowance to the hemline of these sleeves that I'm going to be using to fold in the hem. So after I'm done connecting all the necessary points together, I'll just go ahead and cut this fabric out. I'll also be using this piece to cut out the second part of the sleeve before I fix it to my blouse. I'm just using this to cross check that I have the same amount of measurement for the armhole and the round sleeve. So I'll go ahead and fix the sleeves and I'll be right back. After I was done fixing the sleeves, this is what I have. I also went ahead to iron in the hem of the wrist or the cuff, so I will have a neat finish. If you want to top stitch at the wrist, you can also do that. It's totally fine. Now at the slits in the front, I also went ahead to top stitch that to hold it in place, as you can see. So guys, this is a finished look. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, please give me a giant thumbs up and share this video to your friends. Also, if you're new to my channel here, don't forget to click on the subscribe button. Thank you. And also do not forget to turn on your notification bell so you can get notified whenever I upload new videos. So till I see you in my next one, guys. Bye.